So this is a SWAT-t tourniquet. The SWAT stands for stretch, wrap, and tuck. Even though it may not be your preferred tourniquet of choice, there's a lot of other uses for this, which makes this valuable in your med kit. We'll dive into it and give you a rundown of the SWAT-t. So this is a SWAT tourniquet. This is vacuum sealed in a very small form factor, and this has very many uses, which is one reason I really like it. It is an elastic or a stretchy rubber bandage that can be applied to a extremity to use as a tourniquet. You can also use this as a pressure dressing if you don't pull it quite as tight. You can use this to wrap a splint in place. You can use this to hold an ice pack to a injured extremity or a joint. And you can also make a sling out of this for a broken shoulder or clavicle. Because this comes in such a small form factor, this is a great tool to have inside your med kit, even if you're not relying on it as your primary tourniquet. The versatility of this and to be able to have all that functionality in such a small kit makes this very valuable and something that you should have in your med kit. It comes in this pouch. Take it out of the pouch and you'll have a roll similar to this. The roll is then compressed flat so it stores much flatter. But once you open this up, you also have a wristband inside. This wristband so you can apply the time of the tourniquet, wrap this around the patient's wrist, and you can apply the time on there so that's documented. You can also Sharpie it directly on here as well. So let's talk about this as a tourniquet. This is a stretchy, elastic rubber band, so to speak. But it stretches, you wrap it, and as you go, you can progressively wrap it tighter and tighter so that it actually gets the occlusion needed to compress that tissue and occlude that artery for arterial bleeding. So this couple disadvantages are that it gets a little bit slick when your hands are wet or bloody, so it gets a little harder to hold on to, but it's still possible if you keep this in a roll and you pull this roll instead of just relying on pulling this thin material. So as you wrap it, hold this roll, wrap it around, and it'll work much better. Okay, so when I'm applying this as a tourniquet, I want to make sure I go above the area of injury. So if we have severe arterial bleeding on my arm, I want to go up above that site, at least 2 to 3 inches. You're also not wrong if you go high and tight. So I'm going to apply this to my leg here. I'm going to wrap this around. My first wrap here is just going to hold this in place. The rubber has really good friction once it touches each other, and it holds it in place to get that good wrap started. Now I'm going to start stretching it to the proper tightness. If you notice these rectangles will then turn into squares. This diamond will turn into this square, and this oval will turn into this circle when it's stretched tight enough. So we're going to keep an eye on this top line here and make sure that we're pulling it tight enough with each wrap. So each subsequent wrap is going to get tighter and tighter as I have more pressure applied from those multiple wraps. Now when I get down almost to the end, I'm going to take this, I'm going to use a couple fingers to hold this up out of place. I'm going to put that last wrap, I'm going to tuck it underneath, and then I'm going to release it on there. There's good friction right here on this, so it shouldn't come undone. It's secured pretty well, and then I have a ton of pressure here. This is a wide bandage, so it gets really good tissue compression when you use it as a tourniquet. This can also be used as a pressure bandage, so if I have a wound that I've packed or if I have gauze in place for some venous bleeding, I can hold that in place with the SWAT tourniquet. So with this, you just want to make sure you don't wrap it too tight. Because it is stretchy, it will continue to hold pressure on there, so you just have to be careful when you're using this as a pressure bandage instead of a tourniquet. Again, hold it up here, tuck it into place, and you should be good to go. You can also use this to secure a ice pack or hot pack to an injured joint or extremity. So you can also use this to secure a splint in place. So once you have an extremity splinted, we will use this to hold it in place and just do a gentle wrap. So one of the last uses I want to show you is using this as a sling. So if you actually undo this whole thing, you can slide this up under somebody's arm if they have an injured shoulder or clavicle, if you need to secure that arm in place, or if you've splinted it and need to secure it. Slide this up underneath, tie this around their neck. You can literally just do an overhand knot, snug it up where it needs to be, one more overhand knot to secure it in place, and now you have a sling that can support that arm as well. So as you can see, there's many uses for this small little tool. It is a great tool in a small form factor, so it's definitely worthwhile to have in your kit. While it's not my primary tourniquet, I still rely on the cat. I love the cat tourniquet, but if you use this as your pressure bandage, now you have so many other capabilities in a small form factor other than just a simple pressure bandage. You now have a backup tourniquet, you now have a sling, you now have something else to wrap a wound. So there's many other uses for this, which is why I love it so much. So we have added these recently to our website, so you can find these at sixecosystems.com. If you have any questions regarding this, contact us in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, stay vigilant and stay safe.